YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Buda, back in the build for another Last Cloudia news and information video. Today, we'll be taking a look at the newest character dropping tomorrow, Thouzer. Introduction to the game. Of course, you guys know, with these introductory videos, we can't be certain how the character is going to perform. There's too many variables that we have to see in-game before making those real judgments, but we can get a good idea of what they're bringing to the table just based on paper. So let's go ahead, not waste any time, and jump into what Thouzer's kit looks like. There he is, looking clean, I must say, with that artwork. So S1 Deadly Veil, 7 hits. S2 Anger Shred, 11 hits. Folter Gallows, 14 hits. And then his special execution. Oh, I see a big old sword in his hand, so that's quite unfortunate. 55 hitter. Interesting. I guess we'll see if any of that is AoE in the actual special. Looking at Thouzer's traits, the first one we have Atrocity. When only one weapon is equipped, dark damage plus 50% and damage cap plus 10,000. Boost dark damage and damage cap based on number of debuffs and or status ailments on the target. Damage plus 7% and damage cap 1500 for each. Max 8 debuffs and 2 status ailments. So we just had Lagrange, who gave us the max amount of damage cap he could achieve with his certain requirements, but no details. And then now we have Thouzer, who's giving us all of the details, and it's kind of confusing. So you can only get benefits from 2 status ailments and 8 debuffs, right? So if you have like 4 status ailments, you're not going to get 4 times 1500. So you gotta kind of keep that in mind, which I think is just a very strange way to do this. When skill 3 or special activates, give the unit an STR plus 50% buff. So quite a nice buff if you can maintain that, I imagine. I mean, we'll have to see how long that duration is. I would want to say 40 seconds, but we have so many things in the game that don't follow that 40-second rule that I don't want to say for certain. Interesting, very conditional as well, this trait 1. So moving on to trait 2, Prison Gallowsman. Battle start, give Imprison debuff to the living enemy with the highest max HP. When dealing damage to an enemy with Imprison debuff, cut max HP an amount equal to 10% of damage dealt up to 30% max HP. Why? Why? Why not just make it 30% max HP? What is the whole damage dealt portion? When enemy with Imprison debuff is incapacitated, re-give the buff, or it should say debuff, under the same conditions. When an enemy with the Imprisoned debuff reaches HP 30% or less, skill 3 and special damage plus 50%, damage cap plus 20,000 to that enemy. So we know that that damage cap is associated to the other 2 specifications on the opposite side of the slash. So a lot of emphasis on his skill 3 and special. But then skills 1 and 2 are just kind of left in the dust. Okay. Very weird. There's a lot of weirdness in this guy's traits. I mean, I'm a fan of the debuffing. Cutting the max HP by a third is going to be very significant, I think, when it's useful. I think that's going to make him provide him some very viable use in many situations. Like we talked about, debuffing is what carries over. It's what lasts in Last Cloudia. DPS can get replaced every 2 weeks potentially, but this he has some DPS, but it's really that debuffing capability that I think is going to be exciting about Thouzer here. However, there's just so many conditionals and so much confusion for your boy Buda. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not liking it. I'm reading it, and I'm not just understanding it. I have to like double take on a lot of things, so that alone has me just weirded out by this kit already, but let's just keep moving forward. Looking at the ability descriptions, we have skill 1 Deadly Veil, frontal medium area dark combo attack. The skill 2 is Anger Shred, medium area long range dark combo attack, then instantly move behind enemy to attack again. So that's similar to like Sheeta's S3 and S2, the way there's like a medium area AoE and then he teleports. Skill 3, Folter Gallows, medium area dark combo attack. Will on final hit boost critical rate and damage cap plus 150,000. So that S3, it reminds me a lot of Melee, right? Melee has that monstrous damage cap at the end of her S3 hit. So does this guy. Very, very interesting stuff. Special execution, powerful dark combo attack to one enemy. So no AoE involved. Give enemy cut dark resistance debuff. So there's at least some form of dark resistance cutting. Dark attacker, obviously we can see, but you know, nothing in this kit has me extremely excited other than the debuffing capability. It's hard to get extremely excited about debuffing capabilities because it's you can't quite see the results until you've had a ton of experience in the game, right? Like thinking about cutting a 90 million HP boss by 30 million health, right? That's going to save you a ton of time. That's the kind of potential this guy has in those tough situations. But I mean, kind of, because you have to be dealing a certain amount of damage in order to get that HP cutting. So like I said, it's just kind of confused. It's too many conditionals for me to keep in mind as I'm thinking about how to use this guy. That's what I don't like. Even if it turns out to be uber effective, I'm just, my brain's all over the place, and so I don't like it. And then here we go, the skill board for Thouzer. Execution Anima. All enemies skill damage taken, damage cap plus 2,000. So basically just a damage cap boost, but in the form of an Anima. I'm not super uber excited about that just because I think bringing two supports that give damage cap boosting is going to result into more damage cap for your DPS than like running one support and then this guy's his Anima. However, you will be getting this guy's debuffing along with his DPS coupled with it, so that damage cap boost might be, you know, very potent. Schadenfreude? I don't think I said that right. When defeating an enemy with a debuff, recover HP 25% and SCT 5 seconds. So not going to be mad at that on-kill SCT regen and HP regen. And as long as you're giving debuffs to the entire, you know, enemy team, you can be getting all of that every kill. So I'm not mad at it. Decapitation. When only one weapon is equipped, physical attack damage cap plus 12,000. If unit's STR is highest of his stat spread, chance to break guard when physically attacking. Thrall of God, battle start when only one other ally is God type. You get 10% to those stats. Bodily Anguish, physical attack damage plus 30% to enemies with Imprison debuff. So that's going to help with that HP cutting because you got to be dealing a certain amount of damage. Mental Anguish, when physically attacking an enemy with the Imprison debuff. Chance to give a STR, defense int, or MND debuff the enemy does not have, and it's an effective 20% decrease to that stat. So, interesting. He does have, you know, capabilities to debuff the crap out of this enemy that has Imprison. It's going to be very effective to boss monsters, but it's just not going to be as potent to debuffing like entire enemy teams, which I don't think is a horrible thing. And then looking at skills that he comes with innately that we already know. Fighting Spirit 2, Attack up max, Armor HP plus 2, Critical up 3, that's a good SC save, Proud Force, Armor high boost, Armor mega boost, Indomitable Spirit, we love, Surprise Attack, Dog Eat Dog, interesting, Human Slayer and Brute Slayer, and Special Boost. So very quickly we get another unit that has double group Slayers, right? It took us a year to get from Loug Zeus to Balin, but now from Balin to Thouzer, that was a quick turnaround. Weapon Break, Corrosion Fang, Death God, Auto Brave, Dark High Drive, Dark Mega Drive, Dark Critical Raise, Favored Sword he has innately, Goddess Kiss, Ultimate Boost 2, Giga Weak, Giga Shaker, Giga High Blazer, and Giga High Drain. So those are the enemy team debuffing spells. Obviously, it's going to take you time to cast all of them, but very potent. And they're, like for Blazer and Drain, they're the high version, so that's a minus 35%. I don't think Tweaks has done the character breakdown yet. At least I haven't seen it, but I'm going to double check after I'm done looking at this video. I'm getting the feeling that this guy is going to be a menace in terms of debuffing and damage output. I think a lot of people are going to sleep on his kit. While I am still not a fan of how confusing all the conditionals are in those traits, seeing his innate board is looking really juicy. So let's keep on going. And an SSR Ark Pantorbane, which is nice to see that they're not doing double URs back to back. The Ark trait, duration of debuffs from units' active skills, plus 35%. Battle start, add 15% of STR to defense. Physical attack damage plus 10% to enemies with debuffs, and physical attack damage taken minus 10% from enemies with debuffs. I think this would have been a little more enticing if it was just overall damage, not specifically physical attack. But definitely not an art trait I'm super interested in. Other than the fact that you can get 35% increased duration of debuffs inflicted, that I think can be potent in certain situations. Learnable skills, Iron Wall counter. When counter is active, damage taken minus 20%. So that's going to be teachable. That was recent. Obviously, it's in yellow, but that was only exclusive to certain characters up until now. Terror Jail, damage taken from enemies with status ailments minus 10%. High Blazer, single enemies STR minus 35%. Nice that we're seeing that teachable finally. And then defense up to Curse Research and Giga Silence are the other teachables. So some interesting things come to mind when I'm looking at these learnables. I think getting Iron Wall counter teachable is going to spice things up for tanky defensive metas. Adding a counter mechanic, getting that extra damage mitigation, might make tanks just that much more toxic to deal with. Terror Jail, damage taken from enemies with status ailments, another minus 10%. That is overall damage. So again, just a lot of damage mitigation that I'm kind of dreading how people are going to use it in Arena, but I'm also interested as well. And the Ark Ether Reward for Pantorbane is Eternal Pain. This is a 6-star sword, dark attribute. Trait, when enemy HP is under 30%, physical attack damage plus 20%, and special damage plus 30%. So those are big modifiers, but that's a heavy conditional. Under that 30% threshold, I mean, you're getting towards the end of the fight anyway. I'm more thinking along the lines of things like the Galborg fight, or whatever the wall is named in floor 95 of Tower, where you need a lot more damage at the tail end of that boss battle. And when it has 30 million HP, 10 million HP is still a ton to get through. In Maze, you have bosses pushing 30 to 90 million, right? Those last 30% HP thresholds are a lot to push through. So it will find use, I think, in those situations. But overall, the HP under 30% is just not super applicable to the majority of the game yet. So I think this will find use. Of course, we always have Godforge to make these things even crazier eventually. So not mad at it. I guess we'll take it. And stats STR plus 228. So interesting sword. Last Cloudia. Thouzer appears in Last Cloudia, August 25th. So this kind of had me perplexed, because usually when a character is permanent, it just has a standard statement like this. Thouzer appears in Last Cloudia. Usually when it's DOH or Descent of Heroes units, it'll say Descent of Heroes, Thouzer appears in Last Cloudia. But I initially watched this and thought, oh, is he permanent? But then no. We're going to check out the in-game news and a video after this one. And he is a DOH unit. They specify. So a little bit of inconsistency here that had my eyebrows perked up. But not as good as I thought it was going to be. If this guy was permanent, that would have just been so god tier. I think that would have been such a cool play by Adis, but no. Of course, they want to milk the money. Double Slayer character. We know that a collab is very, very likely right around the corner, so fair play to what they're doing. But let me go ahead and check if Tweaks did drop that unit breakdown, and I'll see you over there if so. Looking through, he did not, so we're forced to think with our own brains about how Thouzer's kit works here. Let me just do some quick math, quick breakdown about this guy's potential damage caps, and try and wrap my head around his conditionals. Okay, Boot Gang. Looks like your boy has done a proper breakdown, I think. Hope so. I'm not the math expert here, but I did put in a little effort in order to get to the bottom of what we're going to be expecting with Thouzer's damage output. So you can see We started with obviously the hits for his S1 through S3. Now the special I didn't calculate here because I'm not super concerned with it. He didn't have a ton of like special boosting capability, and the fact that it's a single target special, I'm just not too interested in breaking that down, but feel free to do that if you want. Over here we did do the damage caps that are innate in his kit, as well as specified the conditional ones that you're going to have to work for, right? So the non-conditional caps from his trait 1, his Anima, Decapitation, Dark Mega Drive, Favored Sword, come out to 45,999, which is not a bad single wheel damage cap, I would say, especially for being unconditional. I'm not mad at it. Now, if you can get the second part of his trait fully realized, which is not going to be often, you know, you need 8 debuffs and 2 ailments specifically in order to realize this. So it's going to range. I think it's going to scale between this 45,000 as well as up to 60,999, or let's just say 61k. So that's going to be where his, I'd say, average damage range is. But then we move into this condition from his trait 2, another 20,000 damage cap when the enemy with the imprisoned debuff has less than 30% HP. So this pushes his S3 damage cap up to 80,999 or 81k. And then, of course, I have the final hits of that S3 scaling from 195 up to 230, depending on where you are with the conditional caps that he has available in his kit. So, I mean, 45 to 60k innately is not a horrible range, I would say. It's definitely not like top tier or super meta. And we can see that by calculating the total damage output scenarios per skill stock, right? So for the S1, between that 45 to 60, you're going to be seeing about 320 to 430,000 damage per S1, which is pretty standard, nothing super special. The S2, you're looking at that 500,000 to 670,000, which again, nothing super special. It's the S3 that I was interested to see at the end of this breakdown, because you can range with that final hit boost and that potential 80,999. So you can see the S3 is dealing anywhere from 800k to almost 1.3 million damage, which is definitely respectable. Anytime you've got a skill stock dealing over 1 million damage, that is a respectable amount of damage output, but it's definitely not the craziest or insanity that we haven't seen before. That's a pretty, I'd say, average top tier DPS output for an S3. But what makes Thouzer super interesting is his debuffing capability along with this kind of damage output, right? When you break it down, when you start combining, you know, when you're thinking about a 230,000 damage cap, you're like, oh my goodness. But when you break down the actual conditions to achieve that and then combine it with the S1, S2, S3 hit counts, you start getting a more realistic picture of what that damage output's going to look like when you're taking down a health bar. Also, something that we can't see until he's in game tomorrow is his skill speed and how they combo into each other, right? It's the combination of using these skill stocks, how quickly you can do that, that truly determines a character's damage output. And that, like, his S3 looked like it took a while to play out based on that initial animation. And I didn't see any mention about super armor. So I think Thouser's going to be able to get flinched out of his damage. A lot of times, many players are going to notice that. However, him having freaking Brute Slayer and Human Slayer and these debuffing capabilities, he's going to be able to achieve those damage caps that much easier, I would say, right? The amount of damage modifiers in his kit will make him feel very good for players that are lacking an endgame account with a ton of resources, with a ton of skills to bring out a lot of characters' true potentials. I think Thouser's going to realize that very easily without much help. So I think people are going to sleep on him. I know I kind of was when I started reading those traits, but he's going to be a very respectable character, especially with that HP debuffing, with that imprisoned debuff. I'm very interested to see the shenanigans that a lot of the veterans can pull off with those high-end difficulty bosses towards endgame. So I'm looking forward to him. Am I summoning for him? Absolutely not. This is not the kind of debuffing that like gets me tempted to throw my hard-earned crystals for when we have a collab right around the corner, because don't forget, the reason Of course, collabs don't guarantee the best of the best stuff, but collabs are the most limited stuff that tend to stay in the meta for the longest, which is why you want to be able to snag as much as you can from them typically when they roll around, for the free-to-play and budget players, of course. I have recorded this video long enough. I need to record the maintenance notice because there are some interesting details in there as well, so I'm going to get to doing that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. A lot to decipher from this man's kit, but I think he's going to be an interesting character nonetheless. Like, subscribe, bell noties, and turn them all on so you don't let the algorithm tell you when to watch my videos. You won't miss crucial information. And with all that being said, y'all know what we say. Work hard, play harder. See you in the next video.